All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyst.study.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. The child learns to say please when asking for cookies from their mother. Without additional training, the child begins saying please when asking for juice from their father and when requesting toys from their grandmother. Additionally, the child begins saying may I have and can I get in similar situations. This scenario demonstrates what? So what you might see a lot of times is the combination of a couple of simple ideas into a more complex scenario, because most of the scenarios we encounter might be a little more complex given that we work with human behavior in these natural situations. For instance, in this case, we have a child learning to say please when asking for cookies from their mother, and then without additional training, the child is saying please in different scenarios. So immediately we're thinking generalization, right? We have this taught behavior of please in the presence of the stimulus, the mother, or asking for cookies. And then all of a sudden, that response of please is going to juice from father and toys from grandmother. So if we just look at this diagram, this is going to be stimulus generalization, right? We have a single response generalizing with all these different stimuli. But we also have an additional scenario where the child is now saying, may I have, which is another response, and can I get, which is another response, and similar situations. So we have the combination of the two, where we have please occurring in the presence of these stimuli, and then these new responses are appearing without that additional training. Not only are we looking at stimulus generalization, but also response generalization as well. So we're looking at both stimulus and response generalization. It wouldn't be only response maintenance because we're not necessarily looking at the maintenance. The skill that was taught was please for cookies from the mother. All these other skills or behaviors or responses, I should say, occurred really without additional training due to generalization. So we've got examples of stimulus generalization and we have examples of response generalization. So what we have is both stimulus and response generalization. Again, the combination of the two simpler ideas make for a more complex question. A child is learning to read and can successfully identify the written word dog when shown the text. Can say dog when shown a picture of a dog and can select a picture of a dog when hearing the word spoken. However, the child cannot yet read the word dog aloud when shown only the written text. What type of training would most likely establish the missing relation and promote emergent verbal behavior? All right, a lot going on in this question, but we're not going to panic. We're just going to attack the question itself. So first, it's asking about a training that's going to, one, establish a missing relation, and two, promote this emergent verbal behavior. So let's start with the missing relation. What relation is missing? The child can identify a written word dog, can say dog when shown a picture of a dog, and can select a picture of a dog when the word is spoken. What's missing is they can't read the word dog. That's what we're trying to work on. We want this verbal behavior to start to emerge so they can start to read more words, right? So to boil it down to the simplest idea, what verbal behavior is associated with reading? Because that's essentially the type of training we want to do. We're missing reading to teach verbal behavior of reading. Well, what kind of verbal operant is that? A, additional tact training with various dog pictures to strengthen the picture-vocal response relation. Well, if we're teaching tacting, we're teaching labeling from a non-verbal SD, and we're not worried about the labeling necessarily. We're worried about the reading of the word dog written down. B, intraverbal training using questions like what animal barks to develop vocal responses. Again, does that help our problem of reading the word dog if the person or the learner is now responding to questions like what animal barks? No, they're still not reading. C, listener training to strengthen auditory comprehension before expecting vocal responses. Again, a great skill, right? Auditory comprehension, but it still doesn't solve the issue. Remember, when you're answering these questions, don't get distracted by all these other answer choices and information. Stay focused on what the task at hand is. We're trying to teach reading to promote verbal behavior. Well, let's teach textual. Let's do textual training to establish the written word vocal response to relation directly. Don't get distracted by these other skills that do apply and are important, but don't accomplish the goal set out by the question, which is helping the learner read the word dog when shown the written text. So how can we do this? Through textual training to establish the written word vocal response relation directly. During extinction of a previously reinforced behavior, a client shows an initial increase in responding followed by emotional behaviors like crying and aggression. The behavior analyst notices that the client's emotional responses seem to decrease the likelihood of adults approaching, which temporarily reduces demands. How should the behavior analyst address the situation? How, if you were this behavior analyst, would you address the situation? Well, what's the situation? We're using extinction, which is good, of a previously reinforced behavior. Client shows initial increase in responding with emotional behaviors. Sounds like a extinction burst. The analyst also notices the client's emotional responses, the extinction burst, right, are now decreasing the likelihood of adults approaching and reducing demands. So what's really the issue here? What is this question telling you? It's saying we're using extinction, there's an extinction burst. Nothing wrong with that. That seems to be like what we want, right? The problem is that extinction burst that includes emotional behaviors is now leading to these new situations and issues. We don't want to solve one problem and create another. So by solving this problem through extinction, we've now created a situation where emotional responses could be reinforced through the reduction of demands or less approaching. So how can this analyst address the situation and fix or address all these issues all at once? A, continue extinction, yes, while ignoring all emotional behaviors to prevent adventitious reinforcement. You can never just ignore the emotional behaviors, right? They matter. They are signs of stuff, of things. They tell us things about the intervention, about the client, about the environment. Don't just ignore emotional responses as if they don't exist. B, discontinue extinction temporarily until emotional behaviors subside, then resume. Well, why would we discontinue extinction if it's working? An extinction burst is usually a good indicator that extinction is effective. We don't want to just quit because it's gotten hard. C, add a conditioned punisher during emotional outbursts to suppress them more quickly. This should definitely not be your first choice, right? Punishment should typically be your last resort, especially when you have an extinction procedure that appears to be working effectively. D, implement extinction for the target behavior while ensuring emotional behaviors don't result in escape from demands. It's really that last part that's important. Emotional behaviors don't result in escape. What could happen is extinction drives our target behavior down, but now we've created this new issue of emotional behaviors possibly being reinforced, and we don't want that to happen. We want to avoid that. So we want to continue this extinction procedure, cover bases, and let all the stakeholders and technicians know. Don't avoid the person and don't avoid demands just because of the emotional behaviors. We want to avoid reinforcing that new behavior while we're focusing on the old one through extinction. In a token economy system, a student earns tokens on a VR5 schedule for completed assignments and on an FI 10-minute schedule for appropriate social behavior. At the end of each day, tokens can be exchanged for preferred activities. This system represents what type of schedule arrangement? Now, on the new task list of 6th edition, these compound questions are easier because there's 4 listed on the new task list, and this one's obvious and the most easiest and the most common. It's our choice, right? Where we have multiple behaviors, behavior 1 and behavior 2, where we have completed assignments and social behavior, and they're both on different reinforcement schedules. Completed assignments is this VR5. Social behavior is this FI10. And they're separate behaviors operating on separate reinforcement systems at the same time. They're running concurrently to each other. So what we have here is a concurrent schedule. Not a difficult question. When you get an easy question, and there will be easy questions on the exam if you've prepared, don't overthink it. Pick the right answer. Trust your gut. Trust your prep. Move on. According to matching law, if a student receives reinforcement for math problems at a rate of 3 per minute and reinforcement for reading comprehension at a rate of 1 per minute, what will be the predicted allocation of responding? Matching law can give people some trouble because there is a little bit of math involved, and there's numbers, and there's ratios and calculations, and that stuff tends to overwhelm some people, and especially on test day. But we just want to remember the very basic idea of matching law, where we're looking at the total amount of reinforcement being delivered. Behavior is going to match more where more reinforcement is available. For instance, if this student is getting reinforcement at a rate of 3 per minute and 1 per minute, then how much reinforcement per minute? Well, it seems about 4. Now, for math, they're getting it 3 per minute, right? For reading, they're getting 1 per minute. So if we just looked at this, if you can get reinforcement 3 times per minute here and 1 time per minute here, your behavior is going to go where? Well, more towards the 3 per minute. There's more reinforcement available. Meaning, if I only respond here and get this 1 reinforcement, well, I know I'm not going to get another 1 based on this rate until the next minute, whereas there are 3 total available here. So if we just look at those pretty standard ratios, and this is math, and this is reading, then what will be the predicted allocation? Well, 75% math, 25% reading. Pretty straightforward, right? Again, don't overthink it. Don't psych yourself out. All right, thanks for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. As always, work hard, study hard, and we'll see you soon.